because I do 1,300 crunches and sit-ups 4 times a week.
What's a dose? Can you translate for us?
Winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Ernie Els.
Welcome back to the Go Track, the podcast about golf and golf adjacent stuff, mostly from Africa. Terence here, Teabag. Nice to be with you guys again. Got my guy JDV across the digital screen from me. JDV, good evening.
Evening, Terence. Nice to be doing a little course overview again.
Yeah, normally I could blame sort of the half the bottle of wine that I have drunk for that mare of an intro, but yeah, you and I were both having a laugh off camera here. We're both showing each other our alcohol-free beers. So times have certainly changed, and I'm sure Linton Kaiser won't be that stoked with us. You know, Linton, just as a rebuttal, I think we're leaving plenty of room for some Buchenholz-Kloof wine in November and December. So,
look, I mean,
I'm not
even
early investing in the body.
I'm not even leaving it till November and December. I'm just leaving it till Thursday and Friday.
Tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Guys, it's been a while. We haven't done a full golf course deep dive. I think JDV possibly since we jumped into Clovelly and Arabella, which was some time ago. So it's been a while, and we've both have now played this golf course that we're going to talk about this evening a couple of times. And it was quite an anticipated course for us in the build up to this year. So that is Zimbali Lakes, guys. So this evening we are going to break down the new golf course at Zimbali Lakes. Zimbali Lakes was opened in March this year, and it has essentially it's literally across the freeway from what we would call the old Zimbali golf course. Some of the holes are probably no more than 500 or 600 meters from that course, but it is on a completely different piece of land. Yeah, looking forward to breaking it down with you, JDV. I think we're gonna try keep it fairly short and sharp. We'll chat a little bit about the background of the course and kind of who was involved. A little bit about the layout. Pick some of our 3 or 4 favorite holes, as you and I like to do, and then talk a little bit about some of the nuances of Zimbali Lakes, which I think could be quite entertaining discussing, because I know you've got some takes on it, particularly on the handicap side.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, sorry, you were jumping in
there?
No,
I was just going to say, I think on the handicap side, I think we'll probably get into it when we start discussing the hole by hole and the sort of the history behind it. But I think it's as I mentioned in my sort of 7 courses, I mentioned Zimbali Lakes a number of times. It's a really, really fun course. I mean, my sort of opening statement on this is if you want to have a lot of fun, and you've got enough disposable income to spend on it, then it's a hell of a lot of fun as like a golf course, accessibility in terms of length and in terms of the contouring. It's a hell of a lot of fun.
So just a brief background. So if you've been driving up to the North Coast, or if you know the North Coast Ballito area, you may have seen this golf course under construction for a few years now. Essentially, it's just past. There's the old Crocodile Farm, which is kind of on your right as you're driving up towards Ballito, and then all the land on the right-hand side of the N2 is essentially where Zimbali Lake sits. So it sits on the south side of Ballito, and the land itself, has changed hands over the years. In fact, going back to the mid sort of 2000s, 2008, 2009, there was actually a layout that had been drafted by the Gary Player Design Company. But since then, the landowners have changed, and that layout of that golf course has changed. So that layout was actually abandoned. The land then eventually ended up in under the ownership of a company called IFA Hotels and Resorts, which is a company which is listed on the Kuwaiti Stock Exchange, JDV. And they bought in golf data to essentially do the design. And that was finally done as a collaboration between golf data and none other than Ernie Els design. So Ernie, he got involved, certainly not right from the beginning of the project, but his company got involved, I think, more or less kind of halfway through the project, and he has certainly put his stamp, I think, on the design. Definitely ties in with his design philosophy and the other golf courses that he's done. JDV, quick quiz for you. Ernie Els has, and this is based on my research, Ernie Els, this is now the 4th course in South Africa, which is an Ernie Els design. Can you name the other 3?
Highland Gate.
Mm-hmm.
Copperleaf.
Correct.
Is the third one a tricky one or is it an easy one?
It's. I would have thought it might have been the first one you would have got. It's sort of where Ernie's originally from, kind of that neck of the woods, Garden Roots area, close to George.
No, Simola's Nicholas.
Closer to George.
Pinnacle Point. No. What's it?
Bye.
Flip, is that Ernie Els?
Yeah, I think it was his first course, actually. Just a sidebar. My understanding is that course is, and I think we actually touched on it when we did our top 100 rankings pod, but it had slid down the rankings significantly. And my understanding is that it's under new ownership now, and apparently it's starting to look good again. They've put some more money into it. I've never played Obai. Have you played Obai?
I haven't. I've heard Swanee is quite opinionated about courses. He says unless you catch it on a still day, he's like, it's even more impossible to play than Pinnacle Point because it's just so exposed and the wind pumps there. So I haven't played. It says there's so many options on the garden route. It's definitely up there. I think Obai, Kingswood, the Links, a couple of the George courses I haven't played yet. So certainly on the list.
Well, interesting taking Swanee's perspective into account, because just like touching briefly on like kind of Ernie Els's design kind of philosophy, essentially his philosophy is all about balancing playability with challenge. So Ernie's he likes to offer multiple shot options, wide fairways, and risk reward elements that encourage creativity.
So T, have you played, what other Ernie Els courses have you played? Have you played, any of those other ones? Copperleaf, Highland Gate?
Absolutely shocking in terms of like research, because I haven't played any of these other courses. So I've seen them and I've looked at pictures of, I haven't looked at Obai that much, to be honest, but I've looked at a lot of pictures of Highland Gates and Copperleaf, and you can really see those design elements coming out. Have you played at Copperleaf or Highland Gate?
No, what a massive blind spot for me. I've played so many courses and I'm the same. This is the Lakes is the only Ernie Els design.
Should we just end this podcast right now?
Well, luckily we're not doing it on Ernie Els golf design. We're doing it on one specific course.
Very true. Very true. Look, I think these philosophies like pretty much come through in Zimbali Lakes, and we'll get into that. But other item that came out here, designs his courses to be walkable. Not so sure about that one.
Is Highland Gate walkable?
I haven't seen that many people walking it. Social and welcoming, reflecting his beliefs that golf should be an inclusive, memorable experience. I think there's maybe some question marks around the inclusivity of golf courses, but that's a wider topic in a South African context, I think. Certainly memorable experiences. And I think a big thing here is kind of designing elegant, timeless layouts that reward strategy over power. And I think that's probably, that sentence probably sums up Zimbali Lakes in a nutshell.
So Terence, just before you get into it, have you had a look at what other courses he has under development?
Unbelievable. Like I spent actually 45 minutes the other day on the Ernie Els website, and I started going down a bit of a rabbit hole on some of these courses. They look phenomenal. And Ernie typically seems to get involved in places in like fairly far-flung corners of the world. I suppose not that dissimilar to like Gary Player and that. He's not designing courses in like Florida and New York and England.
Except for the Els Club Waverly, Wellington, Florida, which is one of the ones that he's got under development.
Okay. Cool, Oaks. Nice podcast. See you later.
But I think the two that
so I was looking at the one like in Mexico, like it's on the like that. What's that like? I don't know that like the peninsula of that juts out. It's like the Baja Peninsula or something.
I see. He's also designing the course in Neom in Saudi Arabia. That's that big long Line City.
Line.
The Line. So that could be provocative.
I heard it started off as a 36-hole layout and now it's a 9-hole mashie.
Is that genuine or not?
But I have heard that the line is no longer going to be 50 kilometers. It's going to be like 2.
Well, I mean, the first 2 of the next 48.
The Saudis are rethinking that development.
But I think what stood out for me on this one is there's 2 South African courses that are under development. The one is in Hoedspruit, and the other one is EPGA Mount Royal, Malmesbury, South Africa. So one in Malmesbury and one in Hoedspruit. So yeah, that's quite cool to see. I mean, I wonder what under development means. Does it just mean like in negotiations to possibly develop, or like I wonder what stage it has to get to before it is classified as under development? Hoedspruit, I think that whole area is going to become a bit of a golf destination. I mean, with the courses up there now.
Yeah, do you think that's like a remodel, or I mean, is there a course there, existing course? Yeah, I don't know. That's news to me, JDV.
Isn't that White River area that's there on my way out?
You are out. Yeah, you're out by some. Or
Skakuza. I mean, how far is Skakuza from Hoedspruit?
It's pretty far. I mean, I think I see on the website here it says Hoedspruit, South Africa. So that's interesting. I'll tell you why that's interesting, because I just want to read and sorry, we're getting sidetracked here again, but I just wanted to read a quote, which I wanted to get your take on, because, being involved in the development world as well, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on this quote from Ernie. So Ernie said, this is talking about Zimbali Lakes. We believe this will be a great fit that will benefit everyone. Around 20 years ago, I had initial discussions with Mr. Berger about doing a project together. So I was pleased when he approached me about the opportunity at Zimbali Lakes. I think the Mr. Berger is the South African kind of managing director of this IFA hotels.
Not
project.
the famous fast food joint outside Fried Tucks in Grahamstown.
No. unless Ernie was having that discussion the last time he was in Rhodes.
Different.
Not Skulk Senior. I was pleased when he approached me about the opportunity at Zimbali Lakes. We believe this will probably be one of the last golf course residential developments to be constructed in South Africa. I mean, I don't find that a very encouraging comment from Ernie. I don't know what your thoughts are.
A bit what we've heard as well, that, as soon as these big developments put golf courses in, it's just taking up space that could otherwise be houses. So from like a developer's like model, I mean, they'd rather put a clubhouse with some paddle courts, etc. It just takes up less space and it just gives them more room to sell plots, I suppose. So, I mean, maybe the sort of the development model is changing to say like, we'll do these high-end developments, but we're not going to offer a full 18-hole golf course. There might be a Simbiti type of executive golf course in the future in these developments, but I just think from like a financial perspective, as a developer trying to squeeze juice out that lemon, maybe not the best idea to put a massive sprawling championship golf course on these places.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting comment from people who obviously like in the know in terms of golf course construction and that. I mean, it's not. Look, I don't love golf courses as housing. I don't love housing estate golf courses. But if that's the way that new courses have to be built, that's like world class new courses, then I mean that probably is the only way that's going to happen in South Africa. So it's almost like saying this could be one of the last new golf courses built in South Africa for considerable amounts of time. That's kind of how I read it. Being in the golf podcasting game is not great for us, JDV. There's definitely more courses closing than opening. What would be the last new course that was built? Highland Gate, probably.
What are you saying, apart from Zimbali Lakes?
Yeah, before Zimbali Lakes, what do you think the last new golf course was?
Well, I mean, we were talking about that Nondela, but I don't think, that's not finished. Yeah, I mean, I imagine that's probably it. I mean, it's Zimbali Lakes. I mean, the other 9 at Gari. I mean, Gari's still pretty newish.
Opened in like 2007. Yeah, I would imagine maybe Highland Gate.
Yeah,
possibly. I think that was sort of 2011, 12. Anyway, it's just a kind of interesting kind of state. So getting into the layout, JDV. I wanted to touch on some sort of old school golf course design philosophy from the good Dr. Alistair McKenzie. Coming out of, I took this out of shout out Tom Doak, whose book I have been reading, which is The Anatomy of a Golf Course, which is a fantastic read for any of you golf course nerds who want to get into some basic golf course architecture stuff. I can highly recommend this book. But basically, JDV, Dr. Alistair McKenzie believed a good golf course should A, present a strategic challenge to a good player. B, not be overly penal on the average player. C, not favor or penalize the same shot on repeat. And D, appear harder than it plays through the use of camouflage, hazard placement, undulations, and natural features. I think that looking at the layout of Zimbali Lakes, genuinely, I believe that it achieves a solid 8 out of 10 on a lot of those principles. I think the strategic challenge to a good player is probably the one where it maybe might fall a little bit short to very good golfers. But for the rest of all of those, I really think it does an incredible job in being a diverse golf course for the average player. I think it encourages a variety of different golf shots. I think it doesn't necessarily favor a fade or a draw. I think there are parts of it which definitely, once you've played it once, it looks difficult through the use. I think the use of bunkering, particularly on the fairways, it kind of ticks that box of that sort of camouflage element where some of the bunkers are not really in play, but they're kind of there just to get into your eye line. And then just obviously the site itself it's a very we probably should have started off by explaining this, but if you don't know the North Coast, the area has got massive undulations. It's essentially like rolling hills, and so there's significant elevation changes on the holes. And I think the way the course has been laid out and the way the holes have been designed, obviously significant earth was moved to create the space for the fairways and that, but it uses the undulations and the gravity, it uses it well to make it a very, very interesting golf course to play. So yeah, I think the difference with Ernie, I think, is that Ernie's kind of adapts kind of those philosophies of Mackenzie by making it particularly focusing on making it not being overly penal. I think when you looked at some of Mackenzie's courses, basically emphasizing fun, I think is really what the mantra of Zimbali Lakes is. And I'm interested to hear your take on this, but I think it largely ticks that box. There's some areas where if you are having a bad day, there are some areas where you may have a long day. But I think overall, the way the course has been laid out, the way the hazards have been marked, and I'm interested for you to get into that, and the way the green sites in particular have been shaped, I think it really is a forgiving and fun place to play golf.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is that it's not a long golf course. I always find that I feel like, and I mentioned it previously, that as amateur sort of mid to high handicap golfers, we are forced to take driver on a lot of golf courses we play, and maybe the issue is we're playing off the wrong tees, but we play off the white tees, which is generally the club tees. But you still generally need to take driver to sort of have any real shot at taking a mid-iron to the green. Most par fours are not reachable for us. Whereas this course genuinely makes me feel like you can look at the scorecard and sort of look at where the bunkers, etc., are and say, okay, well, driver might not be the option here. That bunker's in play, or I'm going to take the driver, I'm going to take the risk on, but I can genuinely hit the green. For me, the fact that the course is short has made it a lot more interesting off the tee box in terms of the clubs that you want to choose. The fact that it's red staked all the way around, it's very thick rough, but it's not in a situation of, well, lost ball, go back and re-tee. All of that is red staked. So you can still drop there where you've gone in and save a par. And then, as you mentioned, a lot of the contouring around the greens is, it's not a inverted saucer that's trying to repel your ball off the green if you're off the sort of the middle of the green by a couple of meters. It's all contoured on towards the green. So most of those holes, unless it's I think about the 10th hole, where it's a very short drivable par 4, it's a massive, 2-tier green. But there is a bit drop off on the left and right. You can understand why, because, otherwise if you're going to take a driver, but again, even there, you've got that massive bank at the back, which stops you from going long. So again, it's sort of encouraging you to take a big club. You can't get into too much trouble going long. And it sort of also opens up a lot of different shots. You can take on low risk with high reward. I think about some of the shots Terence said you hit. I mean, the one par 3, you basically, you were a bit worried about one of your chips, so you just chipped it like all the way to the top of the bank, and it like rolled down to within a couple of feet. And it does get creative. I mean, there's nothing better than sort of playing a shot and watch the ball sort of run towards the hole, as opposed to like having to fly it to exact number. I'm certainly just not good enough to do that, but I am good enough to sort of take a hack at a bank and see it roll down and somewhere on the green. So for me, that makes it a hell of a lot of fun, and a very stark contrast to a lot of the championship courses that have been opened that are almost trying to compete to be the hardest or the most difficult. And I don't know if that's because they're trying to guard against the modern game and equipment, etc., that the pros use. But I think the idea of trying to design golf courses for professionals, and the majority of the people playing the course is not going to be a professional, it seems to have sort of like run rampant a bit lately, in terms of and you can understand why. But it also it takes that element of the everyday golfer going out there and almost makes it like inaccessible unless you a reasonably experienced golfer. You don't have to be particularly good, but you have to be experienced, because I mean, no one's going to have a lot of fun losing a ball and shooting 100 on every hole and picking up and not finishing. Whereas, as I mentioned, even if you're in the bush or take a big stick and lose it, you can just drop there and try and make your par. And that's not to say it's easy. The tee shots are tricky. As you mentioned, it is intimidating on a lot of those tee boxes, but you don't have to take a driver if you don't want to. You can very much take a 6-iron, 8-iron on some of the holes.
I think just to jump in on your point of playability, JDV, I do think that globally in the golf design space, I think that like people have come full circle on that now. So I think what you're seeing globally in a lot of new golf courses is this movement away from these like overly penal golf courses, moving more back towards what we would call the strategic design school of design, which is making it more playable, but still making it a challenge for better players by using like angles and like strategic positioning of bunkers, but not making it feel like it's the hardest place in the world for like an 18 handicap. And I think we just are not exposed to that enough here in South Africa, but purely because of the fact that we've only had 2 new golf courses open in like the last decade, and we just play a lot of the courses that we play, unfortunately, were designed in the era where they were trying to make it like as hard as possible. And that's why, to be honest, why you and I also gravitate towards courses from more of like the golden era, which were more about like strategy and, using slopes and angles and all of that stuff. So it's a very refreshing thing for us to see a course like this in South Africa. And I think most people that I've spoken to who have played it have generally, it's been one of the first things that they've brought up, is just how different it is from a design perspective, which I think is a really important thing to note. I mean, as you said, like I think that the kind of key, you touched on the key elements of the design, but it is short. So from the club tees, it's 5,600 meters. We have basically every single hazard is red staked, so there's almost no out of bounds or areas where essentially you're going to lose a ball and take a distance and stroke penalty where you're reteeing. And then you touched on it, the green sights. I mean, the green sights essentially have been designed to catch balls as much as possible. I mean, it's not normally there's a side of the green which is a very favorable side to miss on, and there's a side of the green that you absolutely don't want to miss on. And I think that's a fair design for like a course where most people who are playing are going to be north of 12 handicaps, given the fact that it's also like it's going to be a resort course with the significant hotel investments in that are going to be happening around it and in the precincts. So pace of play obviously is a big deal. I think that the red stakes help with that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an absolute breath of fresh air to go around a course like that. And I think the other factor is the fairway bunkers. I think South Africans are very used to playing golf courses where there's a fairway bunk on the left, fairway bunk on the right, and the fairway just goes kind of straight in the middle. This golf course isn't like that. There's There's quite a lot of holes that have center line fairway bunkers. Some of them are in play, some of them are not in play. There's fairway bunkers which are on the edges of fairways, but they are not really in play because generally most players are going to be carrying them, but they get into your eye line. And so you definitely find yourself standing on tee boxes thinking about, it's not just grab the driver out of the bag and just, okay, I'm just going to whack it down there somewhere. You really, really have to look at your yardages, look at your landing areas, and it's not a driver golf course, which is I think really fun. You can absolutely hit driver on this golf course, and one of our fellow podcasters will attest to that. If you're hitting your driver well, this golf course is there to be had. But if it starts going awry, it starts going awry pretty quickly. Shout out Taki. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're ready to get into a couple of holes.
But I think before we do that, just in terms of location, and I think how it fits into the golf courses in the area, because it also is becoming, Ballito is booming at the moment. It's easily accessible now with the new airports. I mean, I think maybe you think about the golf courses that were up in the South Coast. I mean, I don't think the airport being on the South Coast as opposed to the North Coast, I think that was deliberate. Now with the airport being there, all of those courses are super accessible. And there's a lot of people from Johannesburg that are sort of semigrating to the Durban Ballito area. So the golf course, obviously the other one that shares a name with Zimbali Lakes is Zimbali itself. We were saying, what do we call Zimbali now? The Zimbali Old Course. And I think from what you've just mentioned, it's going to get a little bit confusing in terms of which is which, because they are very different golf courses. And I think it could create a bit of a yin and yang situation where you've got the Zimbali Old Course, which is tough. It can be a beast at times. It's tricky, but it's a good golf course. And then you've got the sort of more the easier, more I say accessible from a playability option with Zimbali Lakes. And then you've got some BT as an executive course. You've got Mshlali, which is the sort of a more of an older layout. And then you've also got Princess Grant in Stanger, which is not miles away from that either, which offers something completely different as well. So I think Zimbali Lakes, again, differentiating itself from the other golf courses in the area. I think you get a very good mix of golf courses now in that North Coast area, which I think it makes it a real golf destination.
Yeah, I think I thanks for raising it. I think it's such a great point that I think the North Coast was always it felt like you had sort of one and a half good golf courses, and then it was like, oh, are we going to go? We're going to mission out to Princess Grant for those who know the area. I mean, it's not like it's a incredibly long way to get out to Princess Grant, which is absolutely a great golf course, but it's not exactly on the doorstep. And you now are going to have exactly that, like two very premium golf course offerings. And I couldn't agree with you more. The differences between Lakes and the Zimbali Old I think are going to be great in the fact that you're going to get very different experience. I think the one offers you this classical KZN tropical feel of being in amongst that beautiful Zimbali forest at the Old Course, very established. It's a great layout, Zimbali Old. It really is, and I must say, I played it the other day. I mean, it's looking absolutely superb. It's absolutely beautiful, and then you've got Lakes, which is as we've touched on, is nearly 400 meters shorter in distance. I mean, the white tees at the Old Course are 6,000 meters. Zimbali Lakes at 5,600. Possibly a lot friendlier around the greens, moving balls towards the green surfaces, and just a completely different and fun challenge. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. It's really opened up the North Coast as a high quality golfing destination. Just a technicality, JDV, we must mention that have planted bent grass greens at Zimbali Lakes, and yeah, they've gone with a strain which, from what I understand, underwent sort of significant testing, and by all accounts, the greens are absolutely superb for a golf course that's been open for less than a year. I don't know if you concur with me, JDV, on that.
Yeah,
but
100%.
For a new golf course, the conditioning of Zimbali Lakes is I don't think you're going to be disappointed. The bunkers are fantastic. The fairways are really, really good, and in fact, they're so good that the lies were so tight the last time I played on there. It was, the end of winter. Guys were really considering whether or not to use their lofted clubs or whether they were going to put their putter onto the ball. I mean, we saw some guys putting from like 50 meters away on some of the fairways. And I think because of those amazing contours and slopes next to the greens, you can actually do that, and you can have so much fun hitting a putt from like 30 meters away, up and down and over slopes and using banks, and the same with the wedge. If you're feeling confident and comfortable, like you said, you can use backstops and back slopes, and there's just a myriad of different options in the way you can play it. So super fun. I mean, I think you guys can tell that we've been kind of pretty big fans of just the 2 rounds that JDV and I have both played, particularly considering the first round that I played there was probably one of the worst I've played this year. But generally, that doesn't.
Also, shout out to the playability is that, like I said to you the whole way through, it's like one of the worst you played all year, and you still broke 90.
Yeah, JDV. Okay, I want to get into your 3 favorite holes of the course, and I think let's just go back and forth here. So you kick off with a hole, and I'll counter. Pretty sure we're going to have maybe a couple in common, but maybe just kick off with one and why you like it.
Look, I don't know. After having 30 bottles of wine and then picking the 9th hole at Amdonia as one of my favorite there, and being absolutely flamed by Ewan Hoffman for that decision.
Also, just it's important for people to note, for people who are playing at Zimbali Lakes at the moment, or if you're going to be playing soon, coming up to the holiday season, and that there is a limited infrastructure that's been established at the course. So the course itself is fully established, but there is no clubhouse yet. There is no halfway house. There's no putting green, and there's no driving range. But the way it works at the moment, they do have a welcoming, and they do have a bar and a restaurant and that under like a pretty reasonably well established kind of Bedouin tent setup. But you do not start. So the way you play the course at the moment is that you actually start on the 9th hole. So you may hear JDV and I, the way we order these holes might be slightly different, but essentially you start on the 9th hole and you just play 18 holes straight. You don't stop for halfway. They have a beverage cart which drives around, which has food and drinks and everything you could dream of. Some concerns over the frequency of that cart visiting groups, which my last golf group were bit concerned about how often it came past, but I'm sure they're going to get that. You can, and the button was pushed many times.
The touchscreen is broken
in our group, but apparently they were restocking. I think we hit them on a busy day.
Yeah, I think just on the welcome part of it, Terence, I think it's also worth mentioning. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, you get there. So let's, before we dive into the 3 favorite holes, I think we also just need to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the cost of it. And I try to find, again, just to make sure I got my rates right, but as I recall, it's about 1,400 Rand for a round, which obviously includes your cart. You get 3 golf balls. I think, and then a welcoming drink. So on the 9th hole, they've got a sort of little stand there with whiskeys, which is really like a nice way to start, even if you are teeing off at 6 a.m. But I think it's and I've heard a lot of people in Natal, because I think we always spoilt in KZN with the price of golf and green fees. It's not out of whack in terms of what the top courses in Cape Town and Joburg, etc., are charging. For the KZN and the Eastern Cape golfers, it's steep, even with the carts included. I think the 3 golf balls is a great touch, but again, I think it's if you offered someone take the 3 golf balls away and I'll use my second-hand ones and lower the price somewhat. But that's not, and again, that's the.
I think you get a free beer at the end as well, don't you? I think you do.
Okay,
yeah.
But I think the point is that I was trying to make is that I'm not sure, if they are necessarily going for like random people in KZN just sort of making this their like everyday Saturday golf course that they're going to go play unless they're a member of Zimbali Lakes. I think the market they're looking is the sort of the holiday goers, the international market that the new Club Med and the North Coast is going to bring. all the people from Joburg that are used to paying those sorts of prices. So I've said to a lot of the guys from KZN who've sort of had a moan at the price of it, I said, you might not be the target market, which I think needs to sort of be stated now at the outset, because it is a bit of an elephant in the room in terms of the normal sort of the average price that you're paying. And I think there's a broader discussion to be had about, is golf in KZN actually too cheap compared to, the courses you're playing, what you're getting, and then compared to sort of the Cape Town and Joburg's and the running costs of all of these things. But it's a very different discussion there. But I think it does always sit there in terms of like, it's a real thing. I mean, the expense of the green fees.
Look, the way I see it, JDV, is to me it's kind of comparable to kind of the St. Francis Links versus like St. Francis Bay setup, right? If you're visiting and you're not, asset manager in St. Francis for December, you're probably not going to go play at St. Francis Links sort of every second day. St.
Yes.
Francis Links, I think, is about the same price. It's about 1.4 with a golf cart. And I would say the kind of welcoming experience that you receive at St. Francis Links is comparable to Zimbali Lakes. I think that is what they're going for. When you arrive there, you feel welcome to be there. They greet you at your car. It reminds me of the experience and like basically the work that I used to do when I was in Canada, in North America, and the way that they structure those golf courses there, very like guest orientated. So St. Francis Links has got a similar vibe. They're known for their hospitality and for going out of their way to make sure you have a great time. And sure, that some guys say, well, look, I'm happy not to have that to pay less, but that's not really the point.
No,
the
that's
point
not
is
what
you're paying for the experience. I don't think, particularly on a global sense, it's still incredibly affordable golf for the quality of the golf course. If it was not in good condition and if it was still like half the greens hadn't grown in or whatever, then to me a different conversation to me. But when I look at the all the things that we've laid out already in this pod around the fun of the golf course, the conditioning of it, and the experience that they're trying to lay on, and now look, it's obviously difficult when they don't have some of their facilities in place. But that aside, I don't really have a massive problem with the price tag, to be honest with you. I think it's in line with some of the premium price tags at other courses in South Africa, and I don't think it's excessive.
I think the point I was trying to make is you're comparing it to the golf courses in that category in South Africa, not necessarily in KZN. And I think that's where, like, obviously maybe a bit of our echo chamber in KZN, you're getting particular feedback and you're saying, but you're not comparing it with the right courses. And that's where that price point, I think, gets missed a bit. So I'm not disagreeing with you. but I think that is something that's certainly been sort of bandied about in the conversations that I've had with other people around Zimbali Lakes at KZN.
How much is around with a golf cart? If I had to come to Cotswold now, and let's say I wasn't playing, if I was just booking randomly, I wasn't your guest or whatever, it's about 750, right?
I think it's more. I think it's about 900. It's about 900 if you're just a visitor with a cart.
So but then add the golf cart. So yeah, that's what I was getting at. I think it's 900 to 950.
Yeah.
I played 9 holes at Zimbali the other day, JDV, with a golf cart. I paid $550 for 9 holes. So I hear you, but particularly around Durban, I think
prices are rising.
That's just the cost of golf,
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not going to go and play every day at Zimbali Lakes, and in some ways that's what makes it almost like attractive. And I feel like, having played it twice now, it does deliver that value, and I can't wait for the next time to go there. But I'm not going to be going there once a month. Yeah, I get it. KZN people are price sensitive in KZN for sure, but it's not necessarily. I don't think they're trying to get. We've covered it. It's a tourist destination. It's a premium golfing. It will become a premium golfing destination.
I do also think that they are going to clean up in corporate golf days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think everything that they're going to want in a corporate golf day is going to be there. I mean, they're going to have a very playable golf course. with all of the sort of the hitting the right points in terms of those big corporate events that you want to the prestige around it, etc. So I think they're going to clean up on golf days.
Yeah. Look, it will be interesting to know what their timeline is on like things like the clubhouse and that. And I know they're busy with the halfway house, and whether that's going to become the interim like clubhouse, I would imagine, because it is a bit of a tough scene if you're having like a corporate golf day, but like you can't have a shower, or there's one shower between 120 oaks. You'd think that that's got to be on their priority list. Okay, JDV, hit me with your first favorite hole.
Okay, my first favorite hole, I'm going to go in order here, is the second. I think if you're going to have a course called Zimbali Lakes, you got to have one of your standout holes on the lakes. A par four playing off the white tees at 278 meters. Again, another drivable one for probably the bigger hitters, but there's water all the way down the left. I imagine it'll be, well, I mean, it's a feature of the golf course. I mean, there's no sort of rough. It's either fairway or water or lost ball. And when I say lost ball, I mean red staked.
I think that's a very valuable thing that we didn't bring up earlier, is that there's only one cut at Zimbali Lakes, guys. So there's literally fairway and then there's fescue. Those are the two lengths of grass. And yeah, it's pretty sick. There's a lot of fairway, but if you do hit the fairway on the edge or at the wrong angle, your ball can just keep going through the fairway and shigong.
This is a good example. I mean, this one here, I mean, it's a 278 meter par 4. But again, I mean, the fat part of the fairway is where you would hit. I mean, I could probably measure it, but what would probably be like a 180 meter shot would get you into the fat part of the fairway. So anything, any further you want to take on.
It's like 60 meters wide. I mean, it's seriously wide. Yeah.
But then anything you want to take a bit further, you now start bringing the pinch point of the water into play. There's 2 bunkers on the right. If you think, okay, well, I'm just going to take a big club and bail out, then you've got that horrid 50 meter Bryson bunker shot to play with water behind you on the green. But if you're in that fat part of the green and you want to play to the green, you've actually got a bit of space to hit it a bit long. There's a runoff on the green, passed over the green from that angle. I think it's a really great hole, T. I just like the different options it gives you. I like the fact that, even if you take the risk on, you're not necessarily dead. But if you don't execute, you're going to have a pretty difficult second shot if you're still in play and haven't hit the right shot off the tee box. So yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed this hole both times that I've played it. So I think it's a especially if you played it in the right order as the second hole, I think it could be quite testing as your sort of second tee shot off the day. But I like the strategy of this hole.
Yeah, and I think what makes it interesting, again, we've spoken about the green sites and how interesting they are, but there's quite a few fairways which have quite a bit of undulation as well. And this hole, and in fact the first hole before this, is one of them where you can land just short of that right-hand bunker, and in fact your ball will bounce to the left. So it's almost like you've almost got to try and play on exactly where you're going to try and land that shot, which makes it interesting. Yeah, no, that's cool. It wasn't one of mine, but I do like that hole. Am I having issues here with my camera?
Yeah,
flashing on your side.
Flashing on and off. It looks like you're running out of battery there, T.
Okay.
My internet connection and your camera battery.
Okay, well, we might not have video for the last part of this, but anyway. Okay, cool. I'm gonna pick up actually straight after you there, and I'm gonna say the third hole, JDV. So that's the next hole. So par 5. It's actually the stroke 1, and it's a long old par 5. It's essentially got the lake carries on going, so the lake wraps around to the left. Again, you've got lake all the way down the left, and you're definitely faced with a choice on the tee box as to how aggressive you want to be. There's a center line bunker in the middle of a very, very wide piece of fairway. I'm just measuring here. Yeah, it's 75 meters wide at its widest, but it's got the center line bunker, which definitely gets in your eye line. Yeah, it's a difficult par 5. This I think there's another center line bunker further up. So I've now hit a 3-wood off the tee, and I've hit driver. I think driver brings in the water on the left big time. If pull it slightly left, it's gonna keep running on the fairway. And as we said, there's no other rough, so the ball will probably run off into the lake, depending on how you hit it. But if you hit an aggressive drive down the right-hand side, then you're sort of in position A, because the ball will sort of feed back towards the middle of the fairway. And then on your next shot, you sort of left with quite a big choice as well. The ideal shot is to hit it kind of next to the green, but not really going for the green, and try and use the contours of the fairway which feeds massively from right to left, to try and feed your ball down. And or if you fit far enough down and you think you can fly your ball up to that green, you can try and have a crack. But the green is angled at a complete, so you're hitting to the shorts, the short side of the green from the fairway. So the green is angled at sort of 90 degrees to the fairway. And ideally what you want to do is try and cover the second fairway bunker and let your ball kind of feed down to the front of the green, and then try and sort of get up and down to make a birdie there. But
with a bit of a draw.
I've seen some big numbers on this hole, JDV, and it's definitely a hole that makes you think off the tee, and also with that second shot as to how aggressive you want to be in getting your ball close to the edge of the green.
But I think also big numbers, T, because it's a par 5. Guys are always trying to say, okay, well, now I've got to go for it. And I think, guys, there's so many chances to get your hand caught in the cookie jar on this hole. Whether it's hitting that center line bunker off the tee shot, then you're like, okay, well, how much am I going to bite off here? Or trying to miss the bunker and pushing it right, or hooking it left into the water and taking a drop, and then thinking, okay, well, now I'm just going to have to go for it in two, and compounding the error there by putting it in the bush or the water again. I honestly think you could play this hole pretty risk-free and get a reasonably easy 5 or like a 6 at worst if you played it risk-free. But it's just so enticing. And I find this hole so enticing to take on the risk. Somewhere,
yeah,
every shot, you're like, well, I mean, why wouldn't I have a shot at this? Even me, who's like completely risk-averse, I've really stuffed out on this hole both times, just because even me, I'm like, okay, I could play this shot.
Yeah, I think it's the second shot that really entices you in, because you see the fairway slanting and you think, I'm gonna take maybe slightly more club than you should, and yeah, you bring the lake in, you bring that front bunker in front of the green is also, you don't want to be in there. It's a huge bunker. Yeah, it's a great hole. JDV, I must apologize. I said earlier that the white yardage at Lakes was 5,600. I was actually looking at Mhlali Country Club scorecard, but I wasn't far off, because it's actually 5,570. Because luckily I didn't start breaking down the holes, because I would have had I was properly confused there. Yeah, cool. So that was one of my picks. What's your next one?
Okay, so my next one, we are going to the 16th hole. So all the way to the back 9, also a par 5. And again, I think, the par 5s, I feel like they always get a lot of love, just because I think there's so much happening in a par 5. There's more golf hole to love. 10th is stroke 10. It's a 433 meter par 5. No bunkers sort of in play. It's pretty much straight down. It cambers quite big left to right. With a big hill sort of just over the cart path. I mean, I think I snap hooked quite a bad one here and managed to like snap hook it into the bank, and it sort of ran along quite nicely. Okay. But again, I think if you're hitting a fade or a slice on this hole, you're in trouble. And then it leaves you with quite an interesting choice again, like in terms of, and this is where I think it gets interesting, this hole. You've got to play over a bit of a gorge, and you've got 2 fairway bunkers, which are sort of right there in the two sort of, in inverted commas, layup areas, and with a pretty tricky, narrow little green perched up here as well. So yeah, I think again, like for me, I'm taking in quite a long iron here to lay up, or I can lay up all the way back with something and sort of take a pitching wedge into the smaller green. Again, that's probably the easy way, but there's just so much temptation to take a long club and roll the dice with the bunkers that are on play on the other side of that gorge. And that green, I love that green side as well, because there's quite a severe drop off at the back of the green, which makes for a very tricky little chip. And there's quite a big slope in the middle of that green there, which makes some interesting pins to sort of get tucked behind. I know that when we played at T, the pin was sort of tucked on the the top left-hand part of that green, and made for some very interesting putts from all the directions, unless you're in that sort of quadrant. So yeah, 16 for me is a pretty cool hole.
I think this hole is a great example of, on some of the par fives here, and even on some of the drivable par fours, the strategic placing of the bunkers is just absolutely perfect. So it's like the spot where you think that you want to hit, there is often a bunker somewhere in that like vicinity. So I think it was evident on the fourth hole that I covered now with that second fairway bunker. And I think this is another good example where it asks you the question. It says it's fine, because ideally what you want to do on this hole with your approach is you want to hit left of the green, because the contours all feed down onto the green. I mean, you can literally run your ball onto the green if anywhere left of the green. But you have to cover that bunker on the left-hand side, that first fairway bunker. And it's pretty much just in that spot where you go, it's not just an easy pick whatever club you want and lay up. You've got to go, okay, am I going to hit short of that, or am I going to cover it?
Got to be deliberate.
Simple question, and I think this course does a very good job in asking that question almost every hole. So yeah, I love that. I love that choice, JDV. I nearly actually eagled that hole the last time. I hit a great drive, and I hit a 5-iron, exactly like I was saying now, to the left of the green, and the contours feed all the way down to the right. It didn't quite have enough club, so it ended up just off the green, just short, and then hit a long sort of putt off the green, which stopped sort of a couple of inches from the hole. But yeah, nice. It is a fun hole. The two fairways at different diagonals, I think, also makes it quite interesting. JDV, I'm going to take you to the 15th hole, because that's just before this one. I think this was a pretty easy pick for me. So this is one of the drivable par fours. Essentially on the back nine, there are 3 drivable par fours, guys, at Zimbali Lakes, which is pretty awesome. This is, I think, something we probably haven't touched on, JDV, is what a good match play course this is.
And if
100%. You think that this is the back nine, you have the 10th hole, which is drivable. You have the 12th hole, which is drivable, and you have the 15th hole, which is drivable. And I think this is probably my pick of those 3. Essentially, the tee boxes are offset at about a 20 to 30 degree angle from the fairway. So the fairway runs sort of diagonally across from the tee boxes, particularly from the club tees and the championship tees. And again, it's a question of how much risk do you want to take on. Both times I've played, I've seen people in our group drive this green. There's again a massive slope on the left-hand side of the fairway. So if you cover the fairway bunker on the left-hand side, you can pretty easily get your ball to feed down across to the green. But it requires a reasonably precise drive. I mean, you need to hit about a 230-meter drive to get into that zone where the ball's going to start feeding across. And I think when we played with Taki, he hit that perfect shot that the hole was asking for, just that perfect low fade, which just took the contours and it just kept on feeding and feeding. I mean, it was so cool to watch that ball rolling along the ground, and you could just see it was just going to end up in a great spot, and it feeds onto the front of that green. Another way of driving the green is taking a very direct route. So the last time I played, our playing partner, I don't think he was doing this intentionally. I think he pushed his drive quite a bit, but he hit a straight push, which meant he basically just hit a beeline straight for the green. And he somehow fed his ball between those 2 bunkers at the green and got it onto the front of the greens. Super fun hole. You can decide, I'm going to lay right back. But then that doesn't leave an easy approach shot. You can lay up short of the first fairway bunker, which is only 165 meters, but then you're hitting sort of quite an awkward, maybe 120 meter wedge shot. You got to clear that. So yeah, it's have you still got me there?
Yeah, got you back.
Sure, I'm having some major technical issues on my side here.
It feels like one of these.
Feels like
waiting for the ransom to come through.
Well, my screen is flashing at you. It must feel like you're looking at a air traffic control tower. Alerts. Please pull up. Yeah, JDV, that's a great hole, that 15th. And I think, again, you can also make a big number on that hole. If you hit your drive, your first shot into the hay, and then you either potentially re-teeing because you haven't covered the hazard, or you are dropping one down and then making a bit of a mess of it. You can make a big number there, and birdie is very much on the cards there as well with a good drive. So I think it's a great hole.
Teabag, my third hole is probably one that you wouldn't have expected. And the reason I say that is because I don't think we played it in the right order, and I think the hole would be very different or have more significance if it was played in the correct order, and that would be the 18th hole. Obviously, we didn't play it as our 18th hole, but I think if you played it as an 18th hole, especially like in a match play format, if it came down to 18, I think this would be an electric hole.
Wow, that's definitely didn't see you picking this one, but I'm interested to hear why. Maybe just describe the hole to everyone, because I think this is a bit of a signature hole as well.
Yes. Okay. So it's a par 4 stroke 12. It's 325 meters, which is not long for a par 4, but is probably one of the longer par 4s on the course. You tee off from an elevated tee box, and there's a little, like a stream that goes down the left-hand side of the fairway. You've got a center line bunker. It's tiny, but it just like sticks in your brain like a needle, because it's dead center, but it's so tiny, and you just like, I mean, if that was a green, you would never hit it, but because it's a bunker, I feel like you'd always hit it.
I mean, it's tiny. It's like the size of an office desk. I mean,
but I've seen like, and it plays with your mind. I mean, it really does. Every single person who stood up there has been like, I can't hit it in that little pot bunker in the middle. But I mean, the odds of you hitting it in there are like surely quite slim, just because it's so small. There's another bunker a bit further up right. So again, if someone's a bigger hitter and wants to try and sort of bail out and give themselves a good angle into the green, which sits just behind a sort of, I don't want to call it a dam. I mean, it's like the thick part of a river. But yeah, you do have to cover water to get to the green. And if you're wanting to sort of bail out and give yourself a longer shot without bringing the water into play off the tee shot, you've got to contend with a fairway bunker there where you'd want to sort of bail out to.
Again, worth mentioning, it's a 75 meter wide fairway. If you miss this fairway with like an 5-iron in your hand, then yeah.
So I mean, I've taken a hybrid. I've taken a hybrid both times off this box and like haven't hit it well, and still very much been able to like go for the green with like a 7-iron, 6 or 7-iron. Again, it's a big green. It's a very big green, but you obviously have to fly it there. You've got to cover the water. I think, Terence, as I said, I think if you put this as an 18th hole where it could be around Ruiner, or, you know, you had something on the line here, I think all of those decisions become a lot more interesting in terms of how challenging you leave your second shot, in terms of how those bunkers play with your mind off the tee shot, and the fact that you can't pull it left, you know, and then having to, you know, cover the water to that green, which is pretty big. I don't know, like there's something about me in that hole that I think is going to grow on me, especially if it's the 18th hole.
Look, firstly, it's a great photo opportunity, this hole. I think they'll probably have a designated photographer on the tee box, I'm sure. It's a bit like the one par 3 reminds me actually a little bit of that one par 3 at the old Zimbali course, with, you know, the big vertical drop and the ocean in the background. And I guess my only pushback, JDV, on this one is just feels like a lot of people are going to play this hole exactly the same way.
Yeah.
You know, I there isn't enough landing room around the green to be tempted to maybe try and it's quite far to see if you can drive the green. And then there isn't enough reward for hitting your tee shot like as far down as possible, you know, close to the water. I hear you. That centerline bunker is like very provocative, because I can tell you now there's going to be a lot of people who are going to find that thing with like a 4-iron or 5-iron in their hands, and they're going to be cursing. They're going to be like, this is so unfair. Shout out Hoff and Gary Farm. But like, who puts a bunker in the middle of the fairway, and like, because it's literally in the middle of the fairway. Like, you're going to see a lot of like well-struck irons find that bunker, which is, and from there you I mean, unless you're a really good player, I can't see you making the green from that bunker. Cool, JDV. It's definitely an interesting hole, and it's a scenic hole for sure. JDV, my final hole is the par 3, actually going all the way back to the 4th. So we've picked the 2nd, 3rd, and the 4th now in a row. But yeah, the 4th hole is yes, it's if you look at the course on Google Earth, it's quite a provocative part of the course. It's like kind of right in the middle of the course, and you sort of stand on a sort of semi-elevated tee box, but you hit over this massive like chasm that's like gorge. It's just surrounded by bush on all sides, but there's a huge amount of like landing room around the screen. And I think what I love about this par 3, I think it's my favorite of all the par 3s at Zimbali Lakes, is are just some of the slopes around the screen. So when we were playing there the other day, we worked out that the pin was tucked right on the back right, and from the tee box, it looks very daunting to even try and take that pin on. The green has got 2 tiers, so the front tier is actually higher than the back tier. So there's a slope the slope sort of runs away from you. We kind of worked out after we played our shots, and then we watched the group behind us, that if you hit your ball way off like 20 meters left of the green, maybe not 20 meters, maybe like 15 meters, almost about pin high, like halfway up the green, your ball will then run down and feed onto the green down that slope, and it feeds all the way to that back right pin location, which is absolutely amazing.
And it's almost impossible to get to with a normal tee shot.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Well, it's funny. We were standing at the green watching the guys behind us, and I said to the guys, the only way to do this is to hit it up here. And because we knew the guys behind us, so we were sort of shouting at them. And a couple of the guys did hit left. And then I was like, it's the only way to get close to that pin. And then the next guy promptly just fired it straight at the pin and spun it back like 6 feet to like 5 feet from the hole. I was like, okay, maybe there's more than one way. But again, like you brought up, even if you miss that green and you're around that green site, I think there's so many fun little shots that you can play using there's another slope behind the green, which feeds balls, massive backstop. So you can chip like 10 meters over the green to the top of the hill, and it will run all the way back down. So I don't know. I'm just a bit of a sucker for sites like that where you can hit like a bit of a wild shot. Maybe guys will, you could say that it should really punish a really shitty shot. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some hole-in-ones on this hole where, potentially guys have hit like a horrific hook, to the top of the slope on the left, and then to their playing partner's dismay, it rolls down the hill, feeds down to the hole. But I think it's the best par 3, and I think it's a fun hole, and very, very scenic location, like very scenic part of the course, sort of surrounded by like a lot of natural forest and the river and that, which are areas which I don't think are going to get touched by development either. So I think over time, I think it's actually going to become quite a sort of kind of quietish, serene part of the golf course. JDV, just wanted to touch lastly on kind of the handicapping and the ranking of the course. So obviously, I think one of the other big talking points of Zimbali Lakes, because it's so short, when you get there and guys ask you what you're playing off, you might have a little bit of a shock when you enter your name into the handicap system and you see the number that it gives you. So last time I played JDV, the course has a slope rating of 118 off the club tees, and I went from a 10 handicap index, I was playing off a 6. So it's quite jarring for a lot of people to see their handicap cut by so much. I mean, essentially what that means is if you're a 10 handicap, you should be breaking 80 there, like kind of half the times you play it. Just kind of give me your thoughts on that, whether you think they've got that correct, or whether you think maybe there's been a bit of a mismatch in the rating.
No, I think it's definitely correct. It's the similar sort of situation to South Broom. It's based on mainly, I would say, distances and how long these holes. I think what it doesn't take into account, and it's difficult to take it into account, is just how cuck we are with our irons. It doesn't matter how close you can get with your drive. It's difficult to see how many times we chunk a shot. But I've said it, and I'll give a hot take. I think it's actually easier than South Broom if you play this course correctly and it's in no wind. That's not a slight on the golf course at all. If anything, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think if it's going to be an easy course, you have to be brought back to earth with your handicap. So like I said, I mean, if you were to try and if all the shots that you took on you pulled off, you'd shoot your best round, because there's just there's so many opportunities to score. But again, if you're trying to shoot your handicap, you can also go around and shoot a low round without taking much risk and sort of taking irons off tee boxes. I think the handicap's right, Terence, honestly. I think it's jarring because people three putt and chunk chips and the rest of it. But for the length of course and how low you can go, I think it's like playing off the ladies. Like, how often do you actually, when you go and try and play a course, even if you know it well, and play off the ladies, it's, you lose 5 shots, but those are all on the box, and then you're bringing other issues into play if you can't hit your driver straights, etc. I look at this and I'm not, and again, it's going to come across as a slight, but it's not. It's like playing a long championship course off the ladies and having a low handicap. That's the sort of way.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, just to compare, I looked up the slope. The rating for Cotswold is 140.
And sorry, it's not the ladies anymore. It's the red tees. My bad. Yeah. I'll get cancelled for that.
Just issue an apology there. The slope for Cotswold is 140, and for Gowrie is 137. That's compared to 118.
Is that off the club tees?
Yeah, that's off the club tees. Yeah. I don't know if I fully agree with you. I would be interested to see the kind of breakdown of the scores. I think if you're a single figure handicap, I think it's correct. I think, and I know it's hard to come up with a rating across all the handicaps, but I think that good.
You're back with good iron players.
Sorry, I'm having some serious issues here. I think good iron players will find this golf course very easy. I think higher handicappers, I think they'll struggle a little bit more with the penalty areas, even though they are lateral. I think just from witnessing, playing with guys who were quite a bit higher handicaps than we are. They certainly weren't getting anywhere close to what their kind of net score should be on the day. So it will be interesting to see if there's any kind of change to it over the first year or two. But it is something for people to be aware of, that it is quite jarring when you get there. JDV, lastly, before we wrap, where do you see this course? And on that point, sorry, by the way, my take in terms of professional golf at Zimbali Lakes is that I think it's obviously just way too short for any kind of men's tour event. I think it'd be a pretty sick match play event. I think that could be pretty amazing. But I would love to see a professional ladies venture. I think it would be the perfect course and distance for a ladies event. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not they get to host anything. I think it's got the space. It'll definitely have the facilities once they have all the driving ranges and that done in 3 or 4 years. JDV, where do you see Zimbali Lakes landing on the SA Top 100 ranking?
I'm just having a look here. Current ones. I mean, I would say top 30. And I mean, there's some lofty names there. I mean, I'd probably say at the moment somewhere between 15 and 30 would be my guess, depending on, and it'll grow in, if that makes sense. So I don't think it's going to go to 15th to start with.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly where I had it. I had it right now that it would probably crack into the top 25.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at it. I mean, it fits quite nicely into this Outeniqua, Samola, Highland Gate, Champagne Sports region.
100%. My take, JDV, I would not be surprised in 5 to 7 years' time, once we have a clubhouse built, once all the facilities and that are built, and the course is a bit more going in, I would not be surprised to see this in the top 10.
Really?
In South Africa. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's got such a unique layout. I think it's going to be very positively received by a lot of golfers, and I think the conditioning is exceptional. I think it's going to need all those facilities in that, obviously. and to be a lot more established and to not feel like you're playing sort of in a construction site. But that it is my take. I think it's revisited in 2030.
So I've got a question for you for its namesake. Zimbali is currently sitting at 14th. Does it get higher than Zimbali?
I think
If Zimbali's at its peak?
I think it will. I think that's a good metric. I think it's gonna eclipse it. I really do.
On that bombshell.
On that bombshell. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been nice to break down a course and how awesome that we get basically one of the last golf courses to ever be built in South Africa right on our doorstep. So lucky us, and hopefully we get to play it
like a T.
Once a year at least.
Oh, sorry. I thought you stopped there. I thought you had just ended the podcast, but it was just another break in your connection. I was like, okay, well, good.
There's a reason why we decided to start doing more in-person podcasts, because tech has never been our biggest mate. I hope you guys enjoyed this little Zimbali Lakes breakdown. It's probably went a bit longer than we thought it would, but that's kind of how JDV and I roll. JDV, nice to chat to you. Thanks for your time. Until next time. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.